Hello everybody and welcome to video 1 of 5 of the Ray Kroc McDonald Brothers Dictaphone tapes. Now what I have in my hand is a box of tapes, cassette tapes, that were given to McDonald's presidents back in the 1980s, I think. I found this box on eBay years ago and listened to all 5 tapes. There's hours and hours of stuff in these tapes. I threw them on the computer, cleaned up the audio, and it's in the best quality that you can have from tapes that were taken from 1957 through 1959. So what are on these tapes are basically conversations between Ray Kroc and the McDonald brothers, Mac and Dick, when Ray Kroc was just a franchise agent for McDonald's. You'll hear all 3 men discussing all kinds of plans of how to make McDonald's larger, and there's also some funny stuff said as well. When I made the McDonald's documentary, I went back and I listened to these tapes just to make sure I had, almost everything in order from, I guess, this time period. But a lot of stuff I left out because it wasn't really that crucial. But anyways, I figured I'd make this series to give everyone the best idea of McDonald's history because I haven't seen this, put anywhere online yet. So I figured I'd do the best I can cleaning up the audio and share it with y'all here. So on the front of the box, it says, "To McDonald's Presidents from Fred." Now, Fred, we are presuming, is Fred Turner, who was basically Ray Kroc's right-hand man in the beginning of McDonald's when it started to grow immensely. There's A and B, and then side C and D. And then in the card here as well, kind of gives you a guide as to the dates and everything else. And on the card at the very bottom it says, "During the early years of McDonald's, Ray communicated with Dick and Mac McDonald by use of dictaphone tapes mailed back and forth to one another. Enclosed is a set of 5 tapes where Ray, in his own memorable style, communicates with the McDonald brothers." Alright, so we're kicking this video off with, obviously, tape 1 of the Ray Kroc and McDonald Brothers dictaphone tapes. We're going to do side A and side B, the entire thing. In this tape from 1957, you are going to hear McDonald Brothers and Ray Kroc discuss things such as the quality of cups, franchise realty leasing, food quality operating procedures, food cost concerns, building construction, new building appearance, hiring methods, plans for 1958, and a speedy sweet treat idea for kids. All right, well, let's just get into the action. This is the Ray Kroc McDonald Brothers Dictaphone Tape 1 right now. Enjoy.
Disc A, June 1957.
Hello, Ray. By now you're well familiar with our trait of trying to think ahead, trying to stay ahead of the pack, throwing ideas into hoppers and stirring them up and shaking them up, and hoping that something useful will filter forth. Now, here are a few things that we envision in the future McDonald's. And number 1, we think that the paper service, as it is now, is positively, it's horrible. Dixie Cup Company, Lily Cup Company, they've been making these same old dingy white cups with some faded lettering on them for years. And neither one of those companies ever had an idea. It would literally starve from malnutrition. Now, as they are continually raising their prices, the plastic industry is forging ahead and lowering the prices of plastics. And this is what we see ahead, and in a not too distant future either. Instead of this faded white paper cup, we would use plastic disposable cups. And these cups would be a beautiful gold with just a small panel on the cup saying McDonald's. No other lettering, no other copy, nothing but the shimmering gold cup with the panel, a vermilion red saying McDonald's. And this same pattern would be carried out into the trays. We would like the old wax paper wrapper that we're using now thrown into the ash heap, and the hamburgers wrapped in gold foil. Carrying the theme even farther, the boys would wear gold caps, gold shirts, and we think that this would be a beautiful installation. It would lift the McDonald's so far above the rest of the broken down operators that it wouldn't even be funny. All in the unit would be gold. The carry-out bags, the French fry bags, the whole works. We think that the future of the eating industry is positively tremendous. More and more people have more free time. The 40-hour week is going to come down to the 35-hour week, and probably in the not too distant future, people will only work about 25 hours or so. And this means that they're going to be out, they're going to be driving in automobiles, they're going to be eating out more, and no matter what a person does or where he is or so forth, he will eat 2 or 3 times a day. We think that in a few years, our preparation of hamburgers will be entirely electronic and will be cooked in just a few seconds. People are going to demand more and more speed. That is why we think that the ones that have the conventional restaurants, they're in the horse and buggy days, and this is the age of jet propulsion. So in our opinion, they're just dead horse. From time to time, we would like to submit these ideas to you and get your frank reaction on them. And as we always have dealt, we have always laid our cards strictly on the table with you, and you have done likewise with us, and we think that that's a fine association. So we'll wrap this little message up for now, Ray, and drop us a line when you get a chance. Goodbye.
Hiya, Dick and Mac. Boy, you guys are sure on the gold standard, aren't you? I think your ideas are wonderful. And I agree with you that when we can get plastic cups at the same price of paper, we sure will want to do it. Of course, when plastic gets down to the price of paper, paper will begin dropping, and paper cup people will be cut down to size. Now, on the shirt and uniform situation, I like your ideas, and I agree that the help should be better uniformed constantly. As a matter of fact, all of the places here have white shirts that they rent from the laundry with McDonald's across the pocket, which I think is the right direction. I just don't believe in letting the boys bring their own shirts. When you get all types of rolled up sleeves and ribbed and PK'd, faded, tattletale with it. All the colors that go with it, particularly when you're paying boys $1, $1.10, or $15 an hour. So I think the thing is to try to get those places in California to have McDonald's shirts where everyone is exactly the same style and design. There's much research that needs to be done on the McDonald's building. That building is going to be planned up as a prefabricated steel structure in order to get the cost down. These costs are just running crazy. Costs are just building ceramic tile. All the wood construction of the roof is strictly for custom-made jobs and not for mass production. I believe eventually to a porcelain enamel steel which will emulate the tile, the mortar, and everything. And possibly they can put up a double wall construction with blown insulation in between so that you have porcelain enamel on the inside as well as outside of the building. Then the roof, or rather the ceiling, could be porcelain enamel steel. instead of Marlite, which would save a lot of money and yet be even more durable. I believe the whole building would help to keep development, and we get somebody like National Home, somebody of that home, to develop it. And all the thing we needed would be to get the cement slabs poured and set the steel, and it'd be ready to close the building in no time at all. The building could be constructed in about half the time and for a lot less money. This, in my opinion, is a very important part of our future growth. I have finally found a way, I hope, that will put every single McDonald's we open under our complete control. By God, this way they'll either conform or get out. We'll be in the same position as the telephone company or the utility company. If they don't pay their bill with those people, they shut them off. They don't sue or make a lot of threats. They just shut off the latent power. So, of course, they never have any trouble with collecting their money. Now, here's the way we're doing it. Franchise Realty Corporation will take the lease on every McDonald's in the future. In fact, even if a man owns his own property and wants to put up his own building and operate the place himself, he will not be able to do it unless he subleases from Franchise Realty. And the purpose of it is this. The lease from Franchise Realty says that the basis of this lease is for a McDonald's business according to McDonald's standards of operation. Goes on to say that if this building is used for any other purpose than McDonald's, the lease will be automatically canceled on 30 days' notice. It also goes on to say that if at any time McDonald's System Inc. notifies Franchise Realty Corporation that the operation does not conform in every way to the McDonald's and quality and this lease is canceled up. Now, of course, if the place was doing something they shouldn't, they would be telephoned or possibly even written a letter. But that's as far as it would go, and if they didn't correct it 2 or 3 days, then there would be an eviction notice. They would get their net worth. In other words, they would put the price of the inventory and all equipment, less depreciation on the equipment. Now we will have a club over, and by God, there'll be no more pampering or fiddling with them, and they will either do as we say or get out. We will do the ordering instead of going around begging them to cooperate. If we'd have had those with those characters down there in California that raised the prices, said we would have put the prices down or get out. It's a shame so intelligent is that way. Intelligent men, I guess there's no other way to handle it. I was interested in your comments about the shorter work week, but there's only one thing that disturbs me. If the people ever get to a 25-hour work week, we will be paying about $2 an hour for help, high school boys and college boys. And that would mean our 15-cent hamburgers would probably have to go to about 25 cents. The shorter the work week, the higher the inflation. And you can't have inflation. You can't have it affecting everybody. For instance, I've got moments of amazed that they're like, they just aren't making any. They've been going a long time and going along. They certainly are nowhere near the profit picture we have back then. It's due to the fact that their milkshakes cost them from 1 to 2 cents more than they do here. Their milk costs considerably more. So a shorter work week means higher costs for everything and higher labor costs for us. And it would mean that we would have to adjust our prices because, after all, the final motive is the profit motive, and there must be profit. Everything else is secondary to that. I'm sure that our purchasing power is going to increase tremendously in the next year because our volume is really jumping now, and that's going to help everyone concerned.
Disc B, October 1957.
Hi, Mac and Dick. Thanks for the sleeve, and don't be bashful with them. I always enjoy hearing from you. We are following your thoughts as far as the griddle is concerned on hamburgers, as mentioned in your sleep. Fred is very much aware of that problem, and he has Tony and Nick, the other two supervisors, watching this too. We try to keep them to a maximum of 30 so that the preparation table can be kept neat, and there is room for the griddle man to put the meat and bottom of the bun on the top in orderly fashion. Getting that meat centered on the bun is about the toughest thing that we have to contend with, and particularly when there are lines of people out in front and everybody has to work just a little faster. I would like to find some method of keeping that meat centered. Also, some way of making sure that all the onions come off the spatula with the meat and not half of them on the makeup table. Someday, I want to have a laboratory with full-time technicians that can test meat, buns, dairy products, chocolate, ketchup, and in fact, everything we use. And at the same time, they use that laboratory for some research. It seems to me there might be some way of grilling the onions without the slow procedure of putting them on by hand and then leaving about half of what you put on the meat on the griddle. Maybe there's some way of grilling these onions in a separate way and then keep them in some sort of a container overheat so that they are hot. And you would put a few on each meat patty just after they were turned, or you would use like a putty knife and spread a few onions on the bun before putting the ketchup and mustard. Also, maybe there would be some way of putting the meat patty alone on the top of the bun that has been prepared, and then taking the bottoms from the griddle and completing the sandwich so as to be able to see what you're doing, and when that meat is put on the top of the bun so that you're sure it is centered. Where the bottom of the bun has been put on the meat, the fella can't see what he's doing, and there's no way of knowing whether that meat is centered unless he takes the bottom off and looks at it, and of course this would slow him way down. I certainly agree with you that there's nothing nicer than our hamburger when it is done perfectly. And there's nothing sloppier when ketchup is hanging off the side, and mustard, and the meat's way over off of one side, and onions are sticking on the side, and all that sort of thing. It's really a mess. Do you think we would sacrifice any flavor in the bottom of the bun by not setting it on the meat after the meat has been turned over? It seems to me about all we get in that bun is greasy steam. I'd like to have you kick this around and give me the benefit of your thinking on it. It seems to me that in considering these methods for the onions and the bottoms of the buns, that we would go a long way in being sure that the customer is getting the ultimate by eliminating many more chances for human failures. I don't know just how the onions would be grilled ahead of time, except that they would probably be done just before opening in the morning, and enough of them made up put on the griddle at the meat end of the griddle, so that you have enough to last till, say, 2 o'clock, and then then before the supper hour, you make up enough to run through the supper hour, and so forth. It shouldn't be too much of a problem to figure out a way to keep them hot. One thing this would do would be to ensure uniformity and better control. I don't know just how the meat would come off the griddle, because when they use the bottoms of the buns on the meat, the boys put their hands on the buns. Whereas you wouldn't be able to do that when you've just taken meat off by itself. I sure enjoyed that story of yours. However, that fella could spoil it for the rest of us. I got one for you fellas. There's a fella that's got a big dumb ox of a son. In fact, this kid's so dumb, he's 19 years old and still a sophomore in high school. Well, one day he brings home a report card that's the worst the old man had ever seen, and the old man blew his top. He told the boy there's no use of going to school anymore. He said, you might as well come down to the plant and see if you can learn something down there. Now, the old man had raised himself by his own bootstraps and now owned a tremendously big meat packing plant. So he brings the boy in there and shows him plant number 1 and says to the boy, now be observing and try to learn something. And he says, by the way, you see that machine over there? He said, I spent many years developing that machine, and it cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now, he says, with that machine, you can put practically an entire oxen in one end, and it bones it, and cuts it, and grinds it, and adds the spices, and then it puts it in a wrapper, and out the other end come frankfurters. Ding, 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 ding. Real production machine. Well, the kid looks at it, and of course he can't tell up from down, and he knows the old man would just soon kick him in the teeth. Yet the kid wants to appear intelligent, and he said, gee, Dad, that's a wonderful machine, but wouldn't it be marvelous if you could put a frankfurter in one end and get an ox out the other? Well, the old man turned fiery red, and he screamed at the boy, only your mother has that kind of a machine. I'm glad to hear you're set at the Edgewater Beach, and I think you'll get a big kick out of this restaurant show, and undoubtedly meet a lot of your friends from the West Coast and people you know in the industry. We are continuing to get better prices in spite of the general rise in the cost of foods, with the one exception of meat. Meat has been going up all over, and I presume the same thing is true out there. Our mix is the lowest we've ever been able to buy it. We just got a reduction for Michigan on buns by bringing the price from 26 down to 24 cents. We made a deal with an outfit here that is the exclusive distributor for basic onions, which reduced our cost 5 cents a pound on onions delivered. So we continue to pass on benefits to our operators that no other franchise system in this world can ever compete with. You and I know that most food franchises are rackets. They charge them a high royalty fee, and they take kickbacks and commissions on every item, all the way down to paper napkins and toilet paper. And it doesn't take long before that word of mouth gets around, and believe me, people coming in to see us, many of whom have talked with half a dozen different food franchises, and finally say to us, you are the only ones that I get compliments about from your operators. The rest of the franchises have their operators cussing them and accusing them of unethical methods. Our operators should be very happy to pay the 1 9/10% because we're saving them at least 3 to 4, maybe 5% in tangible savings. And if we accomplish that sort of relationship with our operators, believe me, we'll never have a competitor. I had forgotten that you had met Jim Schindler when he went out there to check with you about the opening of the McDonald unit in Des Plaines. Jim is a real fine boy and has been the chief engineer for Leitner now for some 5 years. So we are in good hands for the head of our engineering, construction, equipment, sign, and that sort of thing department. I'm getting this thing pretty well departmentized so that I got a little time to think and plan and collect my thoughts. I have made Don Conley vice president of McDonald's system. So with he interviewing most of the new people, of course I still talk with a lot of them. And Fred Turner taking care of the purchasing of products and being head supervisor. And Harry Sonneborn heading the franchise realty division, where we now have 5 men getting locations for us. We are beginning to shape up as an organization. Everybody I have, except the assistant to Jim Schindler, are young people, and I think that's important for long-range thinking. I'm having some new plans made on the building again. I've never seen anything in my life like architects. They're the worst bunch of fakers I ever saw. Jim is going all over the plans again. Jim is a draftsman, and we're going to get rid of this fellow Zaroli. And at the same time, I'm having some plans made where the lower part of the arches will be reinforced cement and will be structural. And the roof of the building will be poured cement. And the benches will be cantilevered out from the building. This means that by using all cement construction, that we should be able to get the walls and the roof on the building in about 10 days to 2 weeks, and save at least 2 or 3 weeks in the construction of the building. When the lower part of the arches are structural, it means we can remove all lolly columns and open that building up and make it look a lot larger. And of course, there's the problem of getting the forms made so that they will look just like arches. In other words, they'll look just like they look now, because the cement will be painted yellow and enameled yellow, and it'll give the same exact appearance that we have now. But these carpenters, they're slower than molasses in January, and there's about $5,000 worth of carpentry in the building. We think we can eliminate the carpenters entirely, and that'll speed it up and should also cut the cost. Well, so long for now. I didn't realize it's 20 minutes to 2, and I haven't even gone out to lunch, so I'll get off of this and let you hear from me again soon. So long for now. By the way, let me know how your volume is holding up in San Bernardino. Are you still ahead of last year? And do you hear anything about the boys at Downey as to how their business is going?
Disc C, October 1957.
Hello, Ray. Received your sleeve telling about the new type of building construction. And this contractor that you have from Alexandria sounds like a guy that's really on the ball. And the ideas that you talked about sound very good, particularly promoting the compressors and using metal doors. We have metal doors in the warehouse out here, and they have worked out very well. They'll take a tremendous amount of abuse and aren't affected by the weather like the wood doors are. They're not as attractive perhaps as the grained wood doors, but we can see where you really have a problem back there with the winter weather. One thing we do want to mention is that we hope that when we sent that little sketch of the steel building, that you didn't interpret that as that we thought that the building design should be changed. This was farthest from our mind, Ray, and we simply sent that sketch, which was out of one of the steel company's catalogs, as showing the type of construction that they do. And when we talked with them out here. It was with the understanding that they were to make an exact duplicate of the present building design, but using steel. And they said that they could do this even to the tile effect on the building, which they would do with panels. So we didn't want you to think that we had gone completely balmy out here and were suggesting that a square type boxy building be used, such as was the sketch. But that was merely a sketch that we took out of their catalog. A couple of the reasons we have leaned toward a steel building, Ray, is the fact that it is erected in a hurry. Each one would be exactly the same. The steel company could form the arches and the neon sign in the front. And perhaps the biggest item would be the fact that it would eliminate all the problems with the different building departments, building codes in different sections of the country. And as we all know, these vary not only from state to state, but each city or town has its own interpretation. And so many of these folks in building departments are really not qualified to judge mathematical calculations and engineering calculations. And they do a lot of bluffing. And the fact that they do lack education, so many of them are just ex-carpenters and so forth, who have gotten their job through a political appointment on contractors. With a national steel fabricating company, there's none of this foolishness goes on. These companies build for companies like Standard Oil, Shell, Gulf, and all the major refineries, and their engineering department is very well qualified, and they know what they're doing, and the building departments realize this. And if in some isolated case where it might be a matter of a extreme snow load or something like that, this would be dumped into the laps of the engineering department, and they would make the necessary changes. So we thought that instead of having to fight and go through all the red tape with building departments over every building, that it would be so much easier to simply go out and drive a stake in the ground where the building would be centered and tell the representative of the steel company that that's where the building would go, and that's the end of it. They take it from there on and complete the structure. And of course, this structure could be erected in about 2 weeks, and there'd be no delays of any kind caused by adverse weather, as there'd be no having to wait for any of the material to dry out or cure or set up or anything like that. Incidentally, Ray, eliminating the posts in the building would be a big improvement in the appearance of it, and we I sure hope it's possible for this contractor to do that without increasing the size of the arches underneath the roof line. And we'll sure be interested in seeing what the reaction is of the different building departments when these plans are submitted to them. We'll wrap this up for now, but we're looking forward to seeing you real soon. So if you get a chance in the meantime, drop us a few lines. Goodbye. Ray, after signing off, a couple thoughts came to mind concerning the operators and their problems of obtaining suitable employees, and particularly now with the opening of schools. Out here, Mac and I have not had too much help trouble over the years, but even when we have a good crew, we are always on the lookout for good men, and when we see one who is looking for part-time work, we never brush him off with a comment that we don't need any help. We are courteous to him. We take his name and address and tell him that although at that particular time we are filled, we hope he will keep in contact with us from time to time, and we will keep him in mind, and we'll contact him immediately if an opening turns up. When anyone applies for a job, we have him fill out an interview card, and at the top right-hand corner, write down either the letter A B, or C, depending on his appearance. If an opening comes, we take out the A cards first, and if necessary, get into the B cards, but only consider a C man if we happen to be really stuck. But by having this identifying mark on him, we don't have to try to remember what this one looked like or what that one looked like. If he has an A on his card, it shows that he made a good impression on us. We date these cards and periodically call the men who have made an especially good impression on us to see if they're still available for part-time work or if they have moved away, and in this manner keep the filing cards up to date. We have found that good sources of employees are the fire departments, where they are on duty so many hours and then off duty a like number of hours. And we get men in pairs so that one of these is always available for work. The church ministers are another good source of employees, as they are always in contact with members of their church who have had illness in their families, are heavily in debt, and so forth. Another source of supply are the slightly handicapped persons who are ruled out of most of the jobs because of this handicap. But many of these men make excellent workers, making milkshakes, working French fries, and so forth. We have found out that with the work week getting shorter in many industries, this is fine for the workers in one way, but it leaves them with a lot of idle time on their hands. And the first thing they know, they have bought new furniture, new TV sets, a new automobile or something. And then when they do have some illness in the family, they are in trouble. And their only way out is to get some part-time work. We have quite a backlog of fellows waiting for us to call them, such as men who are with the utility companies, a couple of fellows who are inspectors for the building department, several firemen, a couple of policemen, and so forth. So perhaps a memo to the units telling them of these sources of potential help might be of some assistance to them. It was just a thought that we had, and we thought we'd pass it on to you. Well, we'll wrap it up this time and hope to hear from you soon. Goodbye.
Hello, Mac and Dick. Thanks for the sleeve, and I'm happy you sent me your thoughts on the help situation. We have a rough deal with the help situation around a big city like Chicago because there is so much competition for help. The Chicago industries need about 500,000 workers. So you see the competition is very keen, and we have to end up with marginal personnel or handicapped people, or the ones who work strictly from the standpoint of convenience, where they don't have to have any car fare and that sort of thing. We've been pretty fortunate that we're getting along in pretty good shape, but it's a situation in which we constantly need the benefit of suggestions such as you made. This fellow, Walt Benedict from Alexandria, Virginia, will arrive in Lafayette, Indiana next Sunday. He was delayed a few days, and will start the construction of the building in Lafayette next week. He and a lawyer partner who has money have formed a company called Webb and Benedict, and they will specialize on McDonald's construction work for us, but they won't be able to keep up with us because we're going to have more jobs than they can handle. The same thing is true of Illinois Range Company. We've got 150 jobs slated for 1958, which means over $3 million worth of business in equipment, as our finished layout now is running about $22,000, including all the refrigeration, compressors, and final hookup. So I'm now, I've had the engineer up from Southern Equipment Company in St. Louis, who are the largest in their field in the entire United States. And I'm figuring on them doing some jobs for us next year. And all in all, I'm figuring on 2 people in almost every field, so that we are never hamstrung by strikes or problems beyond our control. We still have about 20 jobs, or maybe 25, to be started yet this year. If we can get this thing down to where we can depend on one or two builders to build for us everywhere in the country, or a big steel company in the future, as you suggested, which has tremendous potential for us, it will take away a lot of our problems. To get a contractor to build his first McDonald building in an area in which he probably will never build a second one brings about a lot of problems. He's always able to do a lot better on the second building, but we don't have the second building for him to build. So everybody is going through that trial and error deal on the first building, and it's very frustrating. I look for a big help in that regard from this fellow, Walt Benedict. At least it's going to be a big improvement over what we've had. And on jobs that he can't handle, he is willing to go down and act as a counselor with the local contractor for a comparatively small fee to point out the hazards and be in there as a consultant if and when needed. I'm enclosing with this leave a letter from Jack Whitmire in answer to my letter, which is self-explanatory. I cannot do anything about Riverside until he has made his payment, but when he does, then I will do what I can to stop the present sources of supply from delivering. Now, of course, that's an involved thing, because if I go to Olson and Olson refuses to stop delivering to Whitmire, I've got to be able to retaliate, and I don't have anything to retaliate with. The same thing is true on meat. So that's something that you can think about and help me develop that thing so that we can back up our statements to Jack in this regard. He will be good riddance, and it will be a relief to get him out of the way. I don't know just when I'll get out there, because every day something new comes up that keeps me tied up for the next week. But I've got to get away from here for a while to get freshened up, because no matter how enthused you are about anything, 15, 16 hours a day of it, 7 days a week, will make you get stale. I'm very fortunate that I've got an organization that loves this business as much as I do and works 7 days a week at it without being asked to. I think they feel pretty confident that they're going places and that they've got a tremendous future, which I can tell them is assured. I don't know whether I told you before, but our operators here are now paying 25 cents a dozen for buns, and they're better than ever. Well, so long for now. I'll be seeing you later.
Disc D, 1957.
Hello, Ray. We are enclosing a little idea of ours that we believe might do the very finest public relations job of anything that could possibly be done. Mac and I were discussing the other day the tremendous amount of kid business that we have and the tremendous amount of influence that these youngsters have with their parents. We have had literally dozens and dozens of our customers tell us that many times they have intentionally gone down another street to avoid going by the drive-in in an effort to keep the kids from screaming for a hamburger and a milkshake. But they have told us that, well, this was sort of a dreamer's paradise, because these kids knew where they were, and just because they were a block or two away from the drive-in, this didn't deter them one bit. They started hollering for a hamburger, and it got Mac and I to thinking that perhaps more attention should be devoted to this youngster business. So one thing led to another, and finally we came up with this little new McDonald lollipop. And we were talking about the effect that it would have on a family. If one of the youngsters was ill, perhaps a victim of polio or something not as extreme as that, but if a little package came to the youngster with one of the new McDonald's Speedy Pops in it, with a little card saying, "All of us at McDonald's want you to get well real soon." And we can't help but feel that there would be a tremendous impact. That these parents couldn't help but think, well, now here, of all the business places in this town, the only one who was taking the time to send a little get-well a card or a get-well a little present of any kind was the McDonald's. And we don't think that you could possibly buy this sort of goodwill and any sort of other advertising certainly wouldn't do the job either. And there are a dozen different places that these little Speedy Pops could be used. The lower grades in the schools, the teachers could be given a box of these Speedy Pops and give them out as little prizes. They could be sent to orphanages. They could be sent to Girl Scout groups and small Boy Scout groups. They could be sent to the children's wards in the hospitals. And then we can't help but feel that what a tremendous amount of goodwill would come out of it. Another thing that could be done on certain days, let's say we took that plastic cutout of Speedy that we have and set a tray of different colored Speedies in front of the plastic cutout, so it would look like Speedy was holding this tray in his hands. And when little tykes came up to the windows, as they often do with their parents, hand them out one of these little lollipops. And the little Speedy Pop could be built in a couple of sizes, a small size for this sort of use where you handed out quite a few of them, and a little larger size for special gifts. And golly, there's nothing more economical to produce, I guess, than a lollipop. And as the program got bigger and bigger, we could call in the major suppliers to help in sort of a cooperative deal, and with the cost being spread all the way around, it would be the most economical advertising that could ever possibly be done, and probably the most effective. And there are a million different little gimmicks that could be worked along with it. That Christmas time, around Christmas time, the lollipop could be made out of the Christmas candy with the multicolored effect. And let's say around St. Patrick's Day, it might be a green lollipop. And as the program got bigger each year, something we would like to see is perhaps 2 or 3 times each year a Kiddies Day be set aside for each McDonald's unit. And an ad run in the paper announcing that tomorrow is Kiddies Day at the McDonald's. Come in and get your free gift or your free lollipop or whatever it was that was given away. We think that a day such as this would completely take the play away from all competition. And another thing, there would be a tremendous amount of hamburgers and milkshakes and French fries sold, so it would be a very profitable deal all the way around. Incidentally, getting away from the lollipop for a minute here, we thought your idea of a nice type of pastry to be used in the drive-ins was a very good idea. And once again, this pastry could be in the shape of a simulated Speedy, whether it was a large cookie or something along the brownie style, or a sort of a cupcake deal, or a nut filling or something. This would work out very well, but instead of just using the regular style that they use, have it in the shape of a simulated Speedy. And once again, a tray could be set up in front of the plastic cutout of Speedy, so it would look like he was holding a tray of these pastries in his hands. We showed this little lollipop to a couple of very top advertising Ray, and they thought it was outstanding. It was really outstanding. Doing such a big business, the whole thing ties very well. Well, I want to get this made clear, so we'll sign off and hear from you, and What do you think about this thing?
Hi, Mac and Dick. Well, you really came up with a blister in this Speedy Pop. I am tremendously impressed with the possibilities that this might develop into and its potential in giving us a position beyond the reach of the rank and file of stands, joints, and what have you. I think you have answered the problem of the pastry or sweet item in this Speedy Pop. I don't mean that the Speedy Pop would be for that purpose, but I mean that the simulated Speedy wrapped in cellophane and probably made of a gingerbread or a nut fudge material like a brownie, which would let us call it McDonald's Speedy gingerbread or McDonald's Speedy brownie. Or we could just have Speedy on the chef hat, and then underneath have McDonald's brownie or gingerbread or whatever we have to call it. As I see it, the cellophane wrapper would have the Speedy character printed on the wrapper, and the brownie or gingerbread or what have you would be perfectly plain without any icing or anything, so that there was no melting or spoilage of that frosting. On a production basis, which it would become, the cookie plant would have this wrapped by automatic machinery. The size you sent would be ideal. Maybe it might be a little thicker, I don't know. But it's nice because it's comfortable to hold in your hand and eat, or even to break in half if you want to be more dainty or if you want to split it with somebody. And of course it would lend itself to kids' parties at school, churches, homes. You could hang it on the Christmas tree and all of those things that you mentioned in your part of the sleep. This item, however, would be strictly a commercial item for profit and should sell for about 12 cents. It's an item on which we would have a monopoly, and it's a luxury. People don't have to have it at a meal, and it should carry a good profit. I think you've come up with a terrific idea, and I think it's going to answer two things, both of which we need badly. One is the sweet item to finish off and top off the lunch or supper. Not so much for the adults, although there are a great many adults that do like to finish with something a little sweet. But particularly for the youngsters, you may be sure that they're going to have that when the folks take them over there at supper time or at lunchtime. And then, too, it's a good in-between item. A fella could have one or two of those with a cup of coffee and have a nice coffee break without feeling that he was eating part of a meal by eating some meat and potatoes. Now, the other thing that it takes care of is the public relations, advertising, promotion, publicity, and that end of the business, which is, of course, extremely important. For this, we should have the Speedy Pop made, I don't know, maybe about half the size of this sample, or maybe even smaller. This item, from an impulsive thought, would seem to me to be strictly a gratuity item. If one knew there was a brownie scout meeting at some home, they could send one of the boys over with a dozen of these, or Cub Scouts, or maybe some of the very tiny little leaguers, the kindergarten class at school, or the kindergarten group at Sunday school or church. And of course, on a day like Kitty Day that you mentioned, which I think is a great idea, every youngster under 12, let's say, would get one free. Now, the only thing about an item of this kind, Dick and Mac, is that it's no good if you just get them and put them on the shelf and forget them. It means organization and planning and work. We can give them the plan and tell them how to use it, but the mechanics and details each operator would have to take care of. And there lies the problem. How does he find out that little Joe is sick? If he only finds out accidentally, he will only know about very few minor cases. How does he know about the Brownie group meeting or Cub Scouts? This is where the wife can come in handy and get this information at home, checking up with the community heads about the various groups and where they meet, when, and all that sort of thing. That can be very helpful. And of course, you know, with school starting in fall, if one had these, he could send somebody over around the grammar schools and kindergartens and give them to all the youngsters in kindergarten, first and second grade, and just say with the compliments of McDonald's. Or you would probably have a little tag on the, probably would be a rope handle for safety. And you'd have a little tag on there, compliments of McDonald's. It would mean that we would have to get a local candy company to make these up and then ship maybe 500 to each operator, very simply. So now let's get down